You guys stuck a tracker on me.
This is for the shorter people.
Oh, okay, yeah. Make it Blackfoot size.
Yeah, there
Oh, how's everybody doing? Good. Yate. Did I say that right? Yate. Okay, I got some Navajo friends that's teaching me Navajo. The only one I kind of remember was I don't have no money. How do you say that? Say it. Peso it in, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I got lost on the way here. I was trying to type in the location in old Siri, and Siri got me lost. And then I got a hold of Tyrone on the phone, and I could just hear his lips pointing through the microphone on the phone. You know, that's a good thing about Indian country. You know, everybody, it's kind of a universal. You know how everybody kind of thinks the same. Really visual people. And he's telling me how to get there, and he was saying, you know, just come to that stop sign, go past the trading post, go up the hill, hit the main road. You're gonna see a guy with a plastic shopping bag and a white dog. And anyway, but yeah, no, I made it here. Thank you guys for having me. It's such an honor to be here. My name's Dougie Hall, and I think it's kind of across Indian country. It's customary that we introduce ourselves using our native name and introducing ourselves in our native language. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for you guys. Okini stuni taniku matsuno komita wakima. If you guys don't understand Blackfoot, I just said, hello, my name is Looks So Darn Good. No, I'm just kidding. I said, hello, my name is Crazy After Horses. How I got my Blackfoot name was, you know, usually, you know, you get one when you're a baby. And then as you grow older, you're kind of named according to how you behave, stuff that you like, or something that you did. And I didn't get one when I was a baby. And I was always asking my dad, you know, hey, when am I going to get my Blackfoot name? When am I going to get my Blackfoot name? And I was always bugging him, and he said, you know, it'll happen when it's meant to happen. And so finally, come the time, I was in like my mid-20s, and one of my sisters called me. And she said, your niece and your nephews are getting their Blackfoot names. Do you want to come get one? You know, by our late Chief Earl Oldperson. And I said, sure. So I went into town, and I called one of our elders in my family that I look up to and I love and respect very much, my Uncle Mouse Hall. And I asked him, hey, Uncle Mouse, is there, I'm getting my Blackfoot name. Is there a name you think I should use? Something that fits. And he said, well, my brother's name was Crazy After Horses. And if there's anybody in this family that's crazy after horses, it's you. So I give you permission to use that name. And so that's how I got my name. I wanted to share that with you guys. I grew up on the Blackfeet Reservation in Browning, Montana. Anybody know where that's at? Quite a few people. Yeah. Oh yeah, this guy. I know he's roped there. Did you guys experience the wind? Yeah. Shoot, one time it blew a railroad car off the tracks. It was full of grain. That's how windy it gets there. Where I live is close to a spot that it's got one of those things that measure wind. It's probably about 3 miles from a place called Deep Creek, Montana. They got one of those wind gauges there, and it was I think the hardest I've ever seen it blow in my lifetime is like 140 miles per hour. It gets pretty rugged there. The team ropers they gotta get their horses off the racetrack. They run by the steer and throw their loop that way. So keep that in mind when you go back up there. Yeah, I blew a railroad car off the tracks one time, and it was full of grain, or it was grain or corn or something. I can't remember. But anyway, when it tipped over, they couldn't use the grain or whatever it was, the corn anymore. And so they're trying to figure out how to dispose of it, so they just buried it. And when they buried it, it sat underground. Well, it fermented. And then springtime, the bears come out, and they can smell that grain fermenting. They dug it up and ate it, so you had a bunch of drunk bears wandering around. That's a true story. You can look that up. Then they had to order a bunch of lumber out of Canada to build a rehab center for all the bears. No, that part I made up, but first part happened. Anyway, yeah, I grew up in Browning, Montana. You guys know you could tell when somebody's from Browning? Because when they talk, they sound like the moose from Brother Bear. pretty close to Canada. You could throw a rock in Canada and a rock in Glacier Park. It's growing up in Indian country. I think we're blessed, because there's a lot of horses. There's always something to do. That's how I grew up. I'm a horse lover. I always have been. My dad and uncle, they had an Indian relay team when I was a little guy. So every summer for me, every weekend during the summer for me was a fair. We went to all the fairs in Montana, northern Wyoming, into Idaho. Every fair that had an Indian relay, we was at. So I grew up on sugar and fast horses, and that's a pretty cool way to grow up when you're a kid. It was a lot of fun. And my dad and uncle, when they were, I'd always go with them. I was always bugging them to go with them. And when you're exercising your race horses, it's kind of tough to watch a little guy, right? So what they would do is they'd leave an old saddle horse in the corral for me, and that was my babysitter growing up. And that was probably the coolest babysitter I ever had. And growing up, I always wanted to be what I saw. A little kid, they're like sponges. They're always watching, they're listening. It's like pressing record on your phone. They remember everything. And I wanted to be a cowboy. I wanted to be a bronc rider. I saw the cowboys in my family. They wore pearl snap shirts, and they were, cowboy hats, and they were cool, and they were tough, and they rode bucking horses, and man, they looked like Marlboro men. They were handsome. I'm glad none of them were here because their heads would just swell. But get big-headed hearing me say that. But that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. But growing up, kids, they're really observant. And one thing I noticed, I came to a conclusion when I was a little guy that I think my family is allergic to alcohol. You guys anybody in here got allergies? Or I should say out here. Anybody out here got allergies? What happens when you're exposed to something that you're allergic to? Swell up. You have an allergic reaction, right? Break out in hives. Well, my family, when they drank alcohol, they didn't break out in hives. They broke out in handcuffs. And you guys are laughing, but it's true. And so I thought, what? I think there's something wrong here. And I was really fortunate as a little guy that, I had my mom, first of all, my mother, and I had my dad, and then I had my Uncle Winslow, my dad's brother. I had those people to tell me, Dougie, if you want to do something with your life, especially being an Indian, you should probably stay away from that stuff. Because, they saw all the destruction that it brought to our family. So I was fortunate to have them kind of burn that into my brain. In fact, my mother, she was a community health nurse at the Blackfeet Community Hospital in Browning. And she, when I was a little guy, she made me promise her that I would never touch a drop of alcohol. So I made that promise to her, and I kept it. And, as I got older, wanting to be a cowboy and all this and that, I was never gifted with any athletic ability. I was never talented at anything. When I was like 14 years old, I was probably about 98 pounds soaking wet. I couldn't even bench press the bar. I was a little twerp, But I wanted to be a cowboy. And that's one thing I think that when Creator made us, us native people, is when he made us, he forgot to add the quit. Or he just left it out on purpose. Because everything that our people, our ancestors, the people that came before us have gone through for us to be here today, that's a lot. And I think that since we're all here today, we're all here for a reason. If Creator woke us up this morning, he's not done with us yet. We're here for a reason. And so I wanted to be, like I said, wanted to be a cowboy. I started riding steers. Riding steers, started to break horses, things like that. And when I was 14 years old, my family and I, we were eating dinner at a restaurant. My sister just graduated high school. And we were eating dinner at this restaurant in East Glacier, Montana, right outside the park border. And we got done eating dinner. We were getting in the truck to come home, and I got in the truck. I'm 14, and I didn't put my seatbelt on because I thought, it's like what 15 miles from there to my house, pretty short trip. I don't need to put my seatbelt on. But my mom, and she didn't drink, but my mom being a nurse, she was always, all about safety and health, especially for her kids. And I'm her baby. And so we got in the pickup. I didn't put my seatbelt on. My mom looked in the back seat, and you know that look that you get from a Native woman? You feel like you got snapped by a bullwhip right between your eyes. I know every man in here has gotten that look, especially by the woman sitting next to you. That's the look my mom gave me. And she looked at me and she said, "Are you going to put your seatbelt on?" She wasn't asking me, was she? No, she was telling me, "Boy, you better put your dang seatbelt on right now." And so I did. She saved my life in that moment. If she wouldn't have had me put my seatbelt on, I wouldn't be standing in front of you guys talking today. And so we start our drive home. We're going home, and it's a perfect evening. My mom's laughing, singing to the radio. And anyway, all of a sudden I feel our truck swerve. And I hear my older sister, my dad was driving, my older sister was in the front in the middle, and my mom was in the passenger seat in the middle. I'm sitting behind my dad. I got two cousins sitting next to me. And I hear my older sister in the front seat yell, "No." And I peek around my dad, and I see a pair of headlights coming at us. And that's probably the most helpless I've ever felt in my whole life. Knowing what was going to happen. And so all I could do is just sit back and brace for impact. And we got hit by a drunk driver. And, kind of in our part of the world, you can always, I shouldn't say always, most of the time you can judge how serious somebody's injuries are based on which city they get flown to. And my dad and my sister, they got flown to Missoula. And so we were like, okay, well, they're hurt really bad, but, most likely going to be okay. And the really bad ones, they get flown to Seattle. And my mother, she got flown to Seattle. And that night, they made me spend the night in the hospital. And I was okay. I had some bumps, bruises, scrapes, and things like that, but I was okay. The next morning, my family was really adamant, we got to get Dougie to Seattle. We got to get Dougie to Seattle. So they did. They get me to Seattle. And I go in there. And, we get to Seattle. I go in the hospital. And, I see my mom, in that hospital bed. And there's a nurse walks in. And I've always been the kind of guy that I just kind of get right to the meat and potatoes of what I want to say. And I walk up to that nurse. I said, "Is my mom going to be okay?" And that nurse just cut right to the chase too. She said, "No, your mom's not going to be okay." And I flipped out. Now, when somebody, I think we need to remember this, especially with ourselves and especially with the youth. When somebody is having feelings, when they're upset and they're crying, they're sad, something's really making them upset. It's human nature. We want to rush to them, and we want to put Band-Aids all over them, and we want to make it stop. We want to fix it. Don't do that. Feelings are a lot like kids. You don't want them to drive the car, but you don't want to shove them in the trunk either. Okay? So when somebody's having their feelings, that's healthy and that's okay. Let them have their feelings. All we can do as human beings is just let them know that they're not alone. Because we're herd animals, right? We're no different than horses. We just need to know that we're not alone. And a lot of times that's enough. And so when I flipped out, my brother, he's about, I was pretty, scrawny little booger. And my brother, he's about 6'4", maybe 220. And I was lucky that big Indian was there because he got a hold of me. And he straitjacketed me with his arms and he carried me into a room with my grandma. shut the door behind him, and he let me have my fit. You know, just like with if you're working with a young horse, young horses, they're going to have fits every now and again. If you try to shut it down and stop the fit, you're going to make it worse. Let them have it. Just let them have it. And after they have it, okay, I'm still here with you. Now let's go. We'll move forward. So they let me have my fit. And then after that, you know, everybody was going up to my mom, and they were all these adults in my family. They're all telling her, you know, their last words. And they go up to my mother, and all these adults are saying, you know, goodbye, Susie, goodbye. And I start getting mad because in Indian country, that's not something that we say. You know, even as a kid, I knew that. And I started getting upset. And I was the last one to go. And I walk up to my mom and I tell her, you know what? Mom, I love you. I love you very much. Thank you for being my mother. You're the best mother in the whole wide world. Then I got stern with her. I raised my voice. I said, but one thing I'm not going to tell you is goodbye. Because there's no such thing. So Mom, I love you. And I'll see you later. Now, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life. Because me and my mom, we were best friends like this. You know, I'm the baby in my family. You know, my mom, in fact, I slept in the same bed as my mom all the way till I was 14. That don't leave this tent, but, you know, I was a big baby. I'm a mama's boy. And so losing her, that was, dang, that was tough. And, you know, just to kind of give you a picture of the kind of person she was is, you know, when people would bring their kids in to get shots, they would always ask for my mom. You know, they always wanted Susie to give them their shots because she was gentle about it. You know, mother nurses would just stab you. You know, just like a calf out of branding, just get you out of there. My mom, she wasn't like that though. She was really gentle about it. And, you know, when she would wake me up in the morning, you know, she was always gentle about it, and she'd just kind of wake me up gently, let me sleep 5 extra minutes or 10 extra minutes, and just kind of get me up slowly. Shoot, my dad would just flip the light on, get up! You know? That's the kind of person that she was, you know. It always made me hot cocoa for the drive to town. Like, you know, she's really, really a gentle human being. And she didn't drink. Now, after that happened, you know, I was really depressed. And I had to go from being a little boy to a grown man like that. You know, my dad, my protector, you know, he had a severely broken leg. He had a, you know, a traumatic brain injury. As a boy, I had to pick my dad up. You know, I had to put his socks on for him. I had to help him get going, get out. Like, I had to do a lot of stuff for him. And I was basically like his caretaker. And, you know, I was really depressed after that. And then, but like I said, remember how I said you got to let people have their feelings? You know, I was lucky that my Uncle Winslow, you know, the guy I was talking about in the beginning, he was there. You know, in families, when there's two brothers, you guys know how there's one that's usually like a father figure, kind of more serious type kind of a guy. And then there's one that is just happy-go-lucky, fun-loving, and kind of lives with reckless abandonment. Well, that was my Uncle Winslow. You know, there's the serious brother, then there's the cool brother. And my Uncle Winslow, you know, he kind of took me in after all that happened, and he let me mourn, and that was good. But then one morning he walked in the room that I was in, and he basically told me, okay, that's enough. You know, you've done this long enough. You want to be a bronc rider? I'm going to pick the horse you ride, and you're going to pick the horse I ride. It's springtime. Your other uncle has horses has cows to move to summer pasture. These horses haven't been rode in 6 months, and it's green grass. They're all fresh. He said, we're going to top all of them off, you and I. And geez, I just started shaking in my boots because I knew which horse he was going to pick for me. Because I know how he thinks. He's kind of... And anyway, we go out to the corral, and the horse he picked for me was my dad's horse, Pedro. Now, Pedro lost one of his eyes a year before that. And Pedro was notorious for bucking. Like, anytime somebody got on him, you knew Pedro was going to buck. Like, he was an outlaw. Well, guess which horse Winslow picked for me? He picked Pedro, yeah. And, I went from, we were saddling him up, getting him tacked up and stuff. And I went from a kid that was wanting nothing to do with life at the moment to a kid that was fearing for his life and shaking in his boots. And anyway, I get on Pedro, and when a horse is when a horse is mad and they're getting ready to blow up the back, you can see the back end of that saddle going like this. It's kind of like a temperature gauge, It's getting hotter and hotter. Well, I could just see the back end of that saddle just going this way, and Pedro, he's just swelled up, and he just tight muscles, he's tense. I get on him, and my uncle's sending me around in a circle in that round pen, and Pedro, he's blowing rollers the whole time, just and I'm white knuckling them bridle reins like it's my first time driving on black ice. And luckily he didn't do nothing with me for about 10 minutes, and finally like, oh, okay, he didn't do nothing. Let's head out, throw the gate open. And we're riding, and finally after a little while, Pedro, he's kind of loosened up and he's kind of relaxed and he's moving out nice. And I thought, oh shoot, he's not gonna do nothing, I'm okay. And I see my other uncles kind of coming with the herd of cows, and so I'm kind of feeling, pretty confident, like a little banny rooster. So I kick Pedro up to a lope to catch up with those guys. Pedro takes about 4 strides and just and swallows his head and goes to bucking with me. And I blacked out. I blacked out for a few seconds. I don't even remember. And I kind of come to, and what made me come to, and that's another thing I think why we're blessed in Indian countries, because in Indian country, when somebody's going through a wreck like that, any normal person, you think they try to save you and help you out. But in Indian country, it don't work like that. They encourage the wreck. And I could hear what made me come to is I could hear my uncles and my cousins behind me war whooping at me and laughing. And so Pedro's bucking, and I thought, holy shoot, I'm still here. And he finally quits. He comes to a rest, and he takes about 2 breaths, and then he starts up again. And anyway, I rode him. I don't know how I stayed on that horse, but I did. Probably just pulled leather any which way I could and fearing for my life. And he quit bucking. After he quit bucking, my uncle's over here, they seen it, and then my uncle's back here, they seen it, and they all come running up, and my Uncle Winslow, he's giving me knucks and praising me. And man, that was the coolest feeling. And what he did for me that day was he spooked life back into me. And that's one thing, as Indian people, I think we're really good at. If you let your people feel their feelings, let them mourn. But when it's time for that to be over, they spook life back into you. And I think we need to remember that for ourselves. Is we got to spook life into ourselves every now and again, because we're a lot like water as human beings in our minds and our spirits. When water is in a puddle or a pond, somewhere where it's just sitting still, it gets like gunky and just, full of gross stuff and just, kind of stink. But when water's moving, it's in a river or a creek, or do you guys say creek or do you say crick? Creek? Oh, I say crick, sorry. When water's in a creek. When water is in a creek or a stream and it's moving, it's flowing, what color? It's clear, it's clean, and it's moving. As human beings, we're like that. As long as we keep moving, no matter how slow we move. That's another thing I learned from my mother. My mother, I've never met a stronger human being than a mother or a wife. Let's have a round of applause for all of our mothers here today. My mom, if it wasn't for her, when she was pregnant with me, she was a nurse at the community hospital in Browning. She didn't take maternity leave. And she always got up and she went to work. And if she didn't do that, if she wasn't the type of person that kept moving forward, no matter how slow or fast she was moving, I wouldn't be alive today. Because when she went into labor with me that morning, her uterus ruptured and she started to bleed to death internally. If my mom was the type of person that just, didn't keep moving, I wouldn't be alive. Her and I both would have died that morning. But because my mother, like a lot of mothers, she kept moving. Some days she was crawling. Some days she was walking. Some days she was running. Some days she was flying. But no matter how fast or how slow she moved, she always kept moving. And how many married men are in here today? Oh, I just seen her look. Hey, raise your hand. You better raise your got an elbow to the gut. I wouldn't be as successful as I am today or where I'm at in my life if it wasn't for my wife. She's the rock. She's the foundation. She's the driving force behind everything that we do. Might be behind the scenes, but she's the one that makes it all go round. And for every man that raised his hand, how many of you guys would agree that you wouldn't be where you're at today if it wasn't for your wife? Hey, you better raise your hand. Me too, and me included. And then Blackfoot, that's a special kind of love. And in Blackfoot, there's a word for a special kind of love like that. It's called whipped. I knew the wives would like that one. Oh shoot. But yeah, my mom, after that happened, I finally just kind of thought to myself, you know what? Creator woke me up this morning. I survived. Twice he could have took me, but he didn't. And both times it was my mom. I must be here for a reason. And if I'm here for a reason, Creator must not be done with me yet. So I'm going to do my best to live my life to the best of my ability. Because I know that's what my mother would want. And I know that's what every one of our loved ones that have passed on would want. Feel your feelings, but do your absolute best to live a pleasant life. And try to help other people to do the same thing. And so growing up, after that happened, I kept riding steers, got into high school, started riding in high school rodeos when I was like a junior, I think. And before I rode in high school rodeos, my dad, he didn't want me to ride bucking horses because he just lost his wife. He didn't want to lose his baby. He didn't want me to ride bucking horses. He said I was too small. But one day, Dad was gone on a business trip, and guess who I was staying with? My Uncle Winslow, yeah. Now, my Uncle Winslow, he's probably one of the best bronc riders to come from our part of the world, our part of the country. In fact, I know there's lots of rodeo people here. How many people know that stud Painted Valley of Harry Volz, bucking horse of the year? You guys know who Painted Valley's dad is? Painted Valley's dad was a stud by the name of Oil Train. In the Real Bird family in Crow Agency, they actually had Oil Train for a while. And one time at Crow Fair, when they had Oil Train, this was before Painted Valley was a thought. The Real Bird, my Uncle Winslow was riding broncs there. He made the short round, made the ride off in Crow. And I hope you don't get upset with me for talking about this, but I'm going to brag on him a little bit. He's a pretty humble guy. My Uncle Winslow made the ride off at Crow Fair, and he tore his groin. He had a hernia in his groin, but he made the ride off. Guess what horse he drew? Oil Train, Painted Valley's dad. And he gets on Oil Train, and with a torn groin, hernia in his groin, he taped it up. My Uncle Winslow was like 86 or 87 points on that stud that day. an arena record in Crow agency. I think it still holds today. A lot of people don't know that. So that's my Uncle Winslow. But my Uncle Winslow, he's the type of guy that, he's just a fun-loving, just a laid-back kind of guy. He never dressed like a cowboy until it was time to be a cowboy. I remember we were going to ride broncs that day when he took me to Browning and get on my first bronc. We go behind the chutes, and the guys behind the chutes, they're wearing their, nice cowboy hat, starch shirt, starch jeans. They got their going to town outfit on. Well, my Uncle Winslow was probably the best bronc rider back there. He had on a ball cap, kind of cocked like this. He had on a cut-off t-shirt. He was wearing sneakers, and he had jeans that had holes in them, and he had a big old dip of Copenhagen in like that. And I go to get on this horse, and I'm pretty nervous and shaking in my boots, and all these guys are telling me, lift on your rein, hold the pizza, mark your horse out, do this, and they might as well have been speaking a foreign language to me because, I didn't know what they were talking about. And I looked at my uncle. I said, "Hey, Uncle, I'm pretty scared. What do I do?" And he said, "Well, my boy," and he slapped that horse on the back and it flipped over. He said, "Yeah, you try to stay on that." And then he pointed at the ground. He said, "You tried not to hit that." And you try to make it look like really cool. And that was probably the best advice he could have gave me that day because it was just simple, And that's the kind of guy he was. It's simple, and that's a good thing I try to remember about life. Life is simple, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy, and we got to keep moving forward no matter how fast or slow we go. Got on my first bronc, and I sucked at riding bucking horses when I first started. I got bucked off probably 50 head of broncs in a row before I was able to ride one. But I kept getting back up and kept trying, coming back for more. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I qualified for the National High School Finals Rodeo in the saddle bronc riding. And I felt like a banny rooster then. And made it to the high school finals, went to college. I started riding in college rodeos. And one thing when whether I was high school rodeoing, college rodeoing, is my dad, he always told me, "Douglas," I always felt like I was getting in trouble and he full named me. "Douglas." He was like a drill sergeant. "You're a student athlete. Student comes first. You're a student athlete. Student comes first." Because sports, rodeo, all that, it's fun stuff, but that ain't going to last forever. You got to take care of yourself and your family in the long run. So you handle business first, be the student. After that, then you can be the athlete. And I think you guys got a wonderful program here. You guys got the Diné College. You guys got your own people that are wanting to help you. Get that education. And while you're getting that education here at Diné College, you're also building a network. You're going to meet people. You're going to make friendships that are going to last a lifetime. If it wasn't for me going to college and doing the high school rodeos and the college rodeos and just being in college, I wouldn't have the network that I have. And that's one thing I try to remember. I guess don't really focus on the net worth of yourself, like how much money you have, stuff like that. What's the net worth of your network? What's the net worth of your network? And that's what this college is going to help students do. Build a network. So if they go down the road, they decide to, be into this business or this business, they're going to have allies in different areas and in different parts of the country because of the people that they met through this college and the programs in this college. So you're a student athlete. What? Student comes first. That's right. So I get to college, I start college rodeoing, and I was back at the bottom of the totem pole again, because when you college rodeo, the contractors that bring the bucking horses for the college rodeos, they're PRCA contractors a lot of the time. And so you're getting on 4 and 5-year-old colts that within about maybe 2 to 3 years have the potential to go to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. It's a totally different ball game. I start getting bucked off again. I'm not back at the bottom of the totem pole. And when I'm a junior in college in 2014, I got bucked off every single horse in the fall season. I didn't ride a single horse. And then after the fall season, there's a rodeo coach in Great Falls, Montana. He's a big gruff cowboy. His name's Dick Lyman, stock contractor. Dick walks up to me and he said, "Dougie, you're getting bucked off, but it's because you're trying to spur. And that's good. You keep doing it." And I watched an interview with Billy Etbauer, and Billy said that he never paid attention to points, he never paid attention to money, he never paid attention to standings, results, anything like that. Because when you look at the numbers, you look at all that kind of stuff, it makes you think some type of way that you shouldn't. It makes you think negatively. And so he said he never looked at that kind of stuff. He just rode broncs. He won the world 5 times. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a page out of that guy's book. Springtime rolled around, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to look at points. I'm not going to look at standings. I'm not going to look at money. I'm just going to show up, and I'm going to ride broncs, and I'm going to have fun. Because if there's one thing I learned from that wreck is I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. So I'm going to max bet on myself today. There's no security in life. Security is an illusion. You don't know what tomorrow can bring. You owe it to yourself and to the people that came before you and to the people that are going to come after you to live today and honor yourself today. Max bet on yourself. So that's what I said I was going to do. And springtime rolled around. I just started having fun. I started doing good at these college rodeos. Started placing, started doing good. Got to the regional finals in Missoula, Montana. I make it to the short round. And I go behind the chutes during the short round, and all these guys are coming up to me. "Dougie, go punch your ticket. Go punch your ticket. Go punch your ticket." And I'm thinking, what the heck these guys talk? Is there like a 50-50 going on? Like, I didn't know what they were talking about. And so I go behind the chutes, I get on my horse, nod, and we're going across the arena, getting closer and closer to the whistle. I'm starting to kind of float in my saddle. And the whistle blows. When the whistle blows, that horse bucks me off and my boot goes flying. I hit the ground and all the air in my body just leaves. And I'm trying to get my, I'm laying on the ground, trying to grab my boot, trying to put my geese back in a V. I got a goose over here, a goose over there. And that announcer, he said, he just did it. He just qualified for his first college national finals rodeo. And I jumped up and started dancing into and the whole crowd in Missoula just went nuts. That's part of why I started doing that, dancing if I, made a good ride, is because it was good medicine. If I start riding broncs again, you can watch it on YouTube. Because, it was good medicine. Anything that is good, in our culture, good medicine, anything that makes you feel good and it's positive, makes you feel all those positive emotions and makes you want to cry, happy, tears. That's good medicine, and you got to hold on to that, and you got to protect it. That's why we named our bucking horse company, my wife and I, Good Medicine Bucking Horses, because horses have always been good medicine for me. They're a big part of what saved my life through all the stuff that I've had to go through. And anyway, I started dancing Indian, and after I danced Indian, I just started crying my eyes out because I knew my mom was watching me. Because at one time I was that 98-pound kid that had buck teeth and a mullet, and I couldn't even bench press the bar. And I hope this tent don't pick up. I was talking about Browning wind. It's like, oh, I heard you talking about me. Anyway, made the college finals. I graduated from college with 4 degrees because I was a student athlete. Student comes what? First. Graduated with 4 degrees. Started riding in the PRCA, and I didn't win my first pro rodeo until the age of 25. I was 25 years old before I won a PRCA rodeo. Some people it happens like that. Me, I had to keep working at it. 25, won my first pro rodeo. I was 28 years old before I qualified for my first circuit finals of the PRCA. Took me 28 years to do it, but I did it. A lot of people, aren't fortunate enough to do that. And I got to do it. And I'm really thankful for that because I learned that from my mom to keep moving forward. Thank you. Qualified for the circuit finals of the PRCA. And after that, I got close with my Uncle Mouse in my early 20s. Because by the time I got close with him, I was, I was kind of like a green colt. I had a good start on me, but I wasn't finished. My Uncle Mouse put the finish on me. And I got close with him. I bought some bucking horses from him because I wanted to continue his bloodlines, his legacy, because he was really famous for raising a lot of really great bucking horses. He's well known throughout the PRCA. I wanted to carry that on, and so he agreed to sell me some horses. So we buy these horses, and I'm raising them, and anything I've ever done, I've always had people talking behind my back. I had people talking on the sidelines. In Indian country, if I hear another phone, that's $20. No, I'm just kidding. I always had in Indian country. I think we're our own worst enemy, but we're also our own solution. We need to start supporting one another. We need to start encouraging one another, because guess what? There's enough buffalo out there for everybody. There's enough gold out there for everybody. Oh, but I say buffalo because I'm a Plains Indian. What do you guys, is it mutton? There's enough sheep out there for everybody, you guys. Forgot I'm in Navajo country, my bad. Oh, shoot. That's one thing is, I think it's really cool, you're successful when you're Navajo famous. Like, when my wife and I set up our booth in Vegas, the first couple days are slow. Weekend rolls around, the Navajos show up, and holy shoot. It gets pretty awesome after that. So thank you guys. And that's part of why I was late too. I was trying to gas up, and I had people stopping me and taking pictures. It was kind of cool. Anyway, where was I at? Oh yeah, there's enough sheep out there for everybody. And when you have a good idea, you have a positive idea, anybody, no matter how old you are, whether you're a little kid, adult, whatever, if you got an idea and you really want to do it, you think it's a good idea and it makes you feel that good medicine, you should do everything in your power to do it. Do everything in your power to do it. I was going through a tough time in my life. I was in my 20s, and I seen some videos on Facebook for this place called Veeder Ranch. It was this guy named George Veeder, and he had all these bronc riders from high school age all the way up. Hey, I like your shirt. I just noticed that. That's one of our old school ones. That's awesome. Thank you. I seen these videos for Veeder Ranch, and I see these, at this ranch, he's got everybody from high school all the way up to guys that are making the Wrangler National Finals and the bronc riding, coming to his ranch to ride bucking horses. And he's like around 60 years old, and but he looks like he's in his 30s. He's fit, and he's riding broncs good. I thought, you know what, that's good medicine. I need some of that. So I get a hold of him, and I asked him if I could come down, and he said, sure. He invited me down to his ranch. I get down there. I drive down to Coarse Gold, California from Browning, Montana, and I ride bucking horses with those guys. And it was good medicine. It was like it breathed life back into me. And when I was down there, I met his media guy, the guy that does his social media. His name's Mang Lee with Makeline Productions. And Mang, he's become like a brother to me, one of my best friends. And while I was down there, he told me, Dougie, you got a gift and you don't use it. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when you talk, people listen, and you got a story to tell and you don't use it. I said, well, how do I use it? He said, just start videoing yourself talking and post it on social media. I said, but what do I say? He said, Dougie, just talk from your mind and your heart. I said, but Mang, sometimes my mind and my heart cuss. He said, say it anyway. So I did. And it took off. And when I first started out, I kind of talked like this, and I was really shy, and I didn't like being in front of a camera. And in Indian country, growing up, whole people tease me. I had people, giving me negative feedback and saying this and saying that. But I had enough schooling from, my mom and people that I love, about moving forward and don't worry about what people think or what they say. And I kept doing it. And I kept, anything I ever started at, I sucked at it, but I kept doing it. And I eventually, I did them videos for about 3 years or something like that. And a talent scout that was like looking for Indian stunt riders to be in a movie. He got a hold of me and asked me to do an audition. And don't worry, I creeped on his page and I did a background check to make sure he wasn't a scam. But so anyway, he checked out after I did the background check. And so I did. I took a video of myself riding bareback, sent it to him. And I was rodeoing in Washington, and he calls me. He says, "Hey, Dougie, can you be in Moab, Utah?" And, I think it was like a few days or a week or something. I said, "Sure." Go down to Moab, and when I was down there, I met one of my buddies, Stephen Yellowtail. He's from the Crow Reservation. He's one of my best friends. Who'd have thought that, a Blackfoot and a Crow being best friends? But anyway, one day, I'm walking down the hallway in our hotel, and I hear Steven in his room talking on the phone, and his door's cracked open. I don't know if it was intuition or creator talking to me or whatever, or maybe I'm just a nosy Indian. Something told me to walk in that room, so I did. I walked in his room, and he waves me over like this to sit down, so I sit down by him. He puts the phone on speaker. He said, "Dougie, I want to introduce you to Ian Munzik, famous country singer. He's having a lot of success." And I met Ian. That led to me being on Ian Munzik's music video, White Buffalo. That led to me being on Ian Munzik's documentary, Voices of the West. And Steven was good friends with Mo Brings Plenty from Yellowstone. And he hooked me up with Mo Brings Plenty. And Mo got me onto the last episode of Yellowstone to do some stunt riding. And one day, I get a call from Mo. He said, "Dougie, do you think you could do some acting?" And I said, "I'll take a crack at it." So they sent me a script and an email to send my audition tape to. So I sent it in, and I didn't hear for a while. And then all of a sudden I get a call. My wife and I were selling our merchandise at a Tyler Childers concert. And tearing down our booth the next morning, I get a call from a Texas number. And usually I don't answer odd numbers, but something told me to answer that call. Maybe it's because I'm a nosy Indian, I don't know. So I picked up the phone. They said, "Is this Dougie Hall?" And I said, "Who's asking?" And they said, "Oh, this is so-and-so with whatever production company. Are you still interested in that role?" And I said, "Sure." They said, "Okay, be ready to fly out ASAP." And my wife said, "What's that mean?" I said, "They might fly us out tonight or in the morning." The next morning at 6:30 a.m., they flew my wife and I to Austin, Texas to act in my first role in Taylor Sheridan's 1923. I got to do that, and after that was over, I told my wife, I said, "This movie business is really unpredictable. You never know. So if they call again, that's good, and that's cool. But if they don't call again, and that was the first and the last one, that's okay," and it was fun. And the first episode came out that I was in 1923. That day, I got an email from Taylor Sheridan's team. They said, "Do you want to be in Landman?" And so I said, "Heck yeah." I took it. I'm on the set of Landman. And one day, I'm on set, I'm in costume and stuff. And I hear one of the producers yell my name. And I look over and I just think, oh shoot, like I'm in trouble. Like I feel like I was getting called to the principal's office. Thought I was gonna get fired or something. What just started running through my mind? What did I do? And he comes up to me and he says, "I'm so-and-so. And I'm one of Taylor Sheridan's best friends. I'm really close with him. And I wanted you to know that Taylor Sheridan is the last guy to look at this, at all these episodes. Every show that he does, he's the last guy to look at it. He's the last guy to approve it. You know, he's the final gate that it's got to go through. And when he saw you in 1923, he absolutely loved you. And he said, I got to write a role for this guy in another show. So I want you to know that this role in Landman didn't even exist until Taylor Sheridan saw you. This role was written specifically for you. Geez, my head just went like this. And what I'm getting back to is, if I wouldn't have started doing those videos, using my gift, because everybody in here has got a gift. Everybody in this world has a gift. Your gift is the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. And when you find out what your gift is, figure out a way to do it. Figure out a way to use it. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You know, if I didn't start doing those videos, if I would have listened to them people that gave me negative comments and feedback, made fun of me and this and that, and stopped doing them, I wouldn't have been ready for that role in 1923. You know, doing them videos, getting in front of a camera, you know, I call it camera broke. I got camera broke. I got used to being Dougie in front of a camera. I got used to being Dougie in front of people. And if I wouldn't have started doing those videos, like I said, I wouldn't have been ready for 1923, and I would not have been ready for Landman. None of that would have happened if Mang Lee didn't tell me that day. If I didn't follow my nosy Indian intuition and walk through Stephen Yellowtail's door. You know, creator, when you move with good intention, you do good things and you do them in a good way. Creator's going to bring the right people to you, and he's going to take the wrong people away. And you got to let him do that. You got to let them people leave, because they're going to be replaced with the right people. You know, anything that I've ever done, whether it was riding bucking horses, raising bucking horses, you know, after I, made the Columbia Circuit Finals, for 3 years in a row, my wife and I have had 2 of our horses that we raised out of our program qualify for that Columbia River Circuit Finals of the PRCA. And after that, Landman, 1923, everything. The whole time I had people talking behind my back. I had people talking about me on the sidelines, but then people are talking behind your back and on the sidelines for a reason, because they're behind you. Let's try not to do that. We support one another. Anytime it's kind of funny, all them people that talked about me and said bad things on the sidelines and behind my back, they probably still do. A lot of it come from my own people, and still does. But every single one of them people that don't like me and say them bad things or negative things, guess where they're all at? Sitting at home watching me on their TV screen. We all have the same 24 hours in the same day. We all have the same opportunities. Some of us were born into different situations, but we all have the same opportunities to get up and to keep moving. Because that's how we honor those people that came before us, and that's how we honor those people that are going to come after us. In Blackfoot, we say, Apumakawa, Agachkina, Apapuka. That means travel around, capture your dreams. Can you guys repeat after me? Chase your dreams. Chase your dreams. Chase your dreams. Not your cousins. Hey, oh. And remember, there's enough buffalo and sheep out there for everybody, okay? Thank you, guys. This has been fun.
Yeah, hey.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
That was our gift.
Okay. Thank you.